Yes, hello, welcome to another edition, Triple M Footy's midweek rub. We're still in the bye season, it's cold, it's winter, but gee whiz, the footy's great. And alongside me, I have three of the best in the business, as always, on a Wednesday. Wayne Carey, Damien Barrett, Daisy Thomas. Hello, gentlemen, how's everything going?
G'day, Joey. Yes, going along just nicely. Good round of footy, albeit the shortened version, the 6 games each week, and it's been interesting. Some very good games and then just a couple of real poopy ones off the side.
How good is it, though? It was only, look, let's be honest. We Melbourne supporters and Simon Goodwin and everyone else at Melbourne don't want them to lose 3 in a row, but how good has it been for the competition? Joey, it was only a few weeks ago that you were sitting here on your little geeky calculator going beep, 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 and Damo was going beep, 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 beep.
No, I was arguing with him.
There was 2 left.
You know what? There's only 3 teams that can win
that
it.
was Joey, not me.
Right now, do you agree, as of right now, that 8 teams right now, the top 8, in actual fact, there's 10 teams, because if 2 of those come in and 2 fall out, that can actually win it. Any team in that 8 can win the grand final if they get on a run at the right time and get injuries right.
Absolutely. I think we can argue up to 10, because if you want to
That's what
include
I just
9th and
said.
10th, Richmond and the Western Bulldogs, sorry, Doug, yeah. I absolutely think right now it is wide open, and I think we all agreed at the start of the season it didn't seem that way. It seemed like Melbourne and probably Brisbane by how far, but as we've seen now, Brisbane is still going along, ticking off the wins, but maybe not as convincing as we thought, and Melbourne have dropped the 3 in a row.
And Joey, we in the media often bemoan the bye rounds, and I think we're going to do that at some stage of the next half an hour or so. That's what we've tabled. But rounds 12, 13, 14, look, they are obviously a little bit lacklustre because there's 3 less matches each week. But if we can all just hang in there as a collective, I'm telling you, round 15 presents already. So not this week coming up, but the one after it presents as the round of the season. So I reckon we should all try and stay a little bit more upbeat than
That's right.
maybe we have been.
What
myself
games are
included.
in round 15 then? Just
Well,
you can't wet me
here we
whistle and
go.
not
Here
give
we
me
go.
anything.
Thursday night, Melbourne versus Brisbane. Thursday night, we've got that one there.
Wow.
We've got the
that's good.
Dogs. Wow, 1 and 2.
That's good.
Yes,
That's
it is.
good.
No, I'm with you.
We've got the
Wow.
Dogs and Hawthorn, who one of those teams is in the. You've got Carlton versus Fremantle on the Saturday. You've got the Cats versus Richmond. You've got the Swans versus St Kilda.
Wow.
No,
So,
this is
hang
good.
in there,
Keep
boys.
going,
Hang
keep
in there.
going. You've left some out. Who have you left off?
No, that's a whole week and a half away.
And I was just thinking too, actually, just thought of it then. Last week I think on the Daisy Duck Dive,
Yes.
didn't I ask the question, would you take Melbourne or the field to win the flag? And you said Melbourne.
I said the field.
Damo was the only one that took the field. You two both said Melbourne.
Nah,
so
don't
you're
bring me on
You're
this.
saying how even the competition is. Yet
It
you
is
said
even.
You
Yeah,
take
Duck.
Melbourne
It is even.
compared to the other.
This is before they'd lost 3
Yeah.
in a
Oh,
row.
that's right.
Yeah.
See?
Oh, look, hindsight's
So
a wonderful thing, isn't it?
Hey, did either of you go to...
You always said Paddy Cripps was gone too.
And you said West Coast could win the flag and Port Adelaide and make finals. Let's not do this. We'll make ourselves look very bad if we go
Yes,
back
true.
and look at our history. But did Damo or Duck, did either of you go to the Hall of Fame last night?
Yeah,
haven't
I
asked
did.
you. You did?
It's always the best night in
Yeah.
my eyes, Joey. I mean, you've been there and experienced it, and the ego gets parked at the door on this one, even though there's massive egos in the room as a rule. But that was just great, and the honouring of all these players. I love the Nicky Winmar piece to it last night, and how he took us right back to his early days in Perth and WA, and the Bill Dempsey story. It's too long to retell now. I mean, please go and have a look at the backstories because they're just magnificent stories. It was a really good night, as always.
And well done to Russell Lee, but he was unbelievable.
Geez, he was a big unit when I was watching those highlights. I didn't realise how big he was.
Just can and run, powerful, mark the footy, could do everything.
It should have probably
thoroughly
been in there
deserved.
already.
Should
But
have been.
that's not to diminish the fact that it took him until 2022 to get there, but it just goes to show how...
You could probably reel off another 5 or 6 guys that should have already been legends.
Yeah.
Like seriously, and he's unbelievably good. It is a great night. It is why I didn't go last night. I think I just forgot to put my RSVP in, but I did sit down and watch the whole thing. And you know what? It is one of those nights when you are there that you do look around and you go, geez, he was good. Actually,
Yeah.
no, he was really good. Actually, yeah, he's really good. You do. It is an unbelievable night. I agree. I'll go next year.
Good. It was great. I really enjoyed it. I watched it, and you know what I thought, Daisy, to myself?
did you think?
I'd love to go one year.
Yes.
Not that I'm going to get in the Hall of Fame, but as a guest or get invited somehow.
Do you
'cause
get
it
a
would be a
plus
great. 'cause
one,
I am a
Duck?
footy nuffy, and I love
You
it.
are,
Do you
actually.
get a
I'd
plus
love
one?
to-
Maybe you can take me one year and
Oh,
Joey the next.
That would be
You know
nice. I
what?
would love to come.
No
to your
worries
Duck
at
one
all.
year. That'd
No
be
worries
great.
at all. So good. It is a really
No,
good
it's-
night
yeah.
because you do feel really comfortable there. Like as in, everyone.
Well, you would, Doug.
Everyone is on.
I'd probably feel a bit awkward.
Everyone is on the same. No, but
You're
everyone's
all
on the same
superstars. We get
level.
it Duck. You're very good.
There's no environment you can walk into, Duck, and feel uncomfortable, let alone a footy one.
It is very good.
Very good. Just a quick word on Boomer, who also made the Hall of Fame.
Oh, well, it was always going to be an automatic selection. If you over 400 games is quite incredible, and 5 BNFs, and he's been a very, very good player. So thoroughly deserved.
Taken pick 47, he was, Damo.
Yeah.
In 1995, played 432 games. And the top 4 picks in that draft only played a combined 392.
Is that right?
Yeah.
And he's still dirty because he referenced the 96 season, Duck. He played one game in that year. You won the flag that year. He only played the last game of the year. He felt he should have played a few more games in that year to play more than the 432 he played. So he's still bitter. But no, he was really good. And I think he's got more paganisms than you, actually, Duck.
Yeah, no, he like I said, they all deserve it. What I do love about the night, just quickly, is I love the guys that we don't know a lot about. From interstate, Tassie, Perth, South Australia. Not Russell Ebert's obviously not one of those, but just to hear their stories and how good they were in their respective competitions. So I love those stories.
Very good. Hey, there's plenty of other footy news. We'll get into it after the break, Damo, because you've come loaded today, and we're going to have the Daisy Duck Dive. We'll take a look at the round this week because there's plenty of footy action. So there's still plenty more to come. Stick with us. This is Triple M Footy's Midweek Rub. Triple M Footy's Midweek Rub. It's now time for some news, Damo, and I think we're going to have to start with some injury updates because just recently some breaking news about Big Maxi Gawn.
Yeah, we saw he was banged up in the Queen's birthday match, and then we saw he had scans yesterday wearing a moon boot, and we learned today, only moments ago, that it's a syndesmosis complaint officially. Now, as far as we can tell, there's no requirement for surgery at this stage, but we know that that's an ugly word to have at a stage of a season that they are now out in their now current predicament without their great leader and a man who was tracking for a 6th All-Australian jacket and probably will still get that provided he comes back within 4 or 5 weeks. But again, another problem for the D's.
That's a huge out. I mean, we're only discussing a few weeks ago the most important player for that and May and Gawn. And I mean, May comes back in, but that's huge for them. But it gives, what it does do? It gives Jackson an opportunity, obviously, to stand alone ruck. I think Ben Brown now has to look himself in the mirror again. He's had a few of those times over his career. He turned it around second half of last year. He was good at the start of this year, but he's having a real flat spot. It gives Wiedemann a real opportunity now to come into that side and grab it with both hands. I mean, going back to Mitch Brown, nothing against Mitch Brown, but if Mitch Brown's getting a game ahead of you, then you've got to then he's another one that probably needs to have a good look in the mirror and say, well, where am I and what do I want to do and do I want to be a part of a finals campaign this year? So they've got some questions now that need answering off the back of that.
They do. Just for another couple of injury updates, which is not something we normally do on this particular program, but they're big names. Dusty, unlikely, Daisy, to play tomorrow night.
Illness?
It's an illness. And Damien Hardwick has spoken publicly about the unlikely element to that. I mean, he's a freak talent. He's a freak recovery as a rule, but at the moment, it does seem unlikely for him to play tomorrow night. The problem for the Blues, though, again, is for poor old Caleb Marchbank, who came back after effectively 3 seasons out of the game last week with knee and other problems, and then is now requiring a meniscus cleanup as a result of that, and may now not play again until very late in the season, if indeed at all, given how much footy has missed, and that will open the door almost certainly for Sam Durden to come in, who was taken in the mid-season draft only 2 weeks ago.
I think it was only last week we were sitting here saying we wish that a bit like Charlie Curnow, that now he's back, Caleb Marchbank, he has a really good run at it. He was fantastic in the win against the Bombers, but just not to be another one who just can't seem to get any sort of continuity whatsoever. Just the only good news is that it isn't a reoccurring knee problem. It is the meniscus rather than the ACL, which he's recovering from.
Yep. The game is littered with a lot of stories like that, isn't it? Where guys just don't get a clean run.
Yep.
Their whole careers. It's sad, but let's hope he gets back.
That's all you want to see, don't you, as a player? Just get a fair crack at it. Get a crack at it. If they're good enough, they're good enough.
Correct.
And if not, but unfortunately, when injuries shut people down, that's when it hurts the most.
And just a quick one on the Bulldogs. Josh Bruce, who's been missing since very late last year with the knee, will return via the VFL this weekend, as will Lockie Hunter, who's been missing for personal reasons. So, again, good bolstering of the Bulldogs list as they enter the back half of the season.
Speaking of the Western Bulldogs, anything more on the Bailey Smith situation? When do we think we'll find a decision on his suspension?
Not as we speak. The conversation was opened up yesterday through the Integrity Department speaking with Bailey and people around him. There's a conditioning / expectation that there's going to be 2 weeks ban. There's there's no such thing as a precedent in the AFL system because they like being flexible each time. But given that Shane Mumford was a player who copped 2 weeks when it was made public, as was Brad Crouch. The public element doesn't fit into the drugs policy itself, but that's what they do when it does. And look, he's already missing rounds 14 and 15 for the headbutt on Zach Tui. You can expect rounds 16 and 17 to be added to that absence, and it means he won't play again, Duck, till round 18. But yeah, I mean, look, I think he handled himself so well on the weekend. It was so quick. It was a swift response. It was an all-encompassing apology. It was an admission. And it was a commitment to change and be better. So I can't see why it would be more than the 2 weeks.
It was refreshing in the way it was handled, I feel. Usually people and clubs are so quick to hide the player in instances like this when you do bugger up and you do make a mistake. For him to come out, not front-foot it, just say, yep, I've done the wrong thing. I completely own it. Again, I'm big on excuses and reasons, not excuses as to why I did it, but here's some of the reasons as to how I've fallen down this path. Spoke about how much the grand final loss. Something that I don't think we've all taken is the stratosphere that he is in terms of celebrity at such a young age, a bloke that came from under 18s and obscurity into now the biggest, arguably one of the biggest faces, most recognisable into the game, the toll that takes, and then just making some poor life decisions as a young kid. We've all buggered up from time to time. He put his hand up. He seems like someone who really wants to go and get some help for everything that he has fallen into, and we hope, and I certainly do, that this is something that he looks back on in 10 years' time and it's straightened him right up. He goes on to have a great career and becomes one of the great footballers continuously throughout that time of his career.
And Dave, to your point, he only turned 21 last December, and people just, I think, need to get their heads around that as part of this assessment of what he's done and what's happening with him. Because, yeah, to have 3.5 seasons in the system as effectively the game's greatest profiled athlete in such a short period of time, it's been jam-packed and condensed. And it's another issue, too, when it comes to the youth element, Joey, and guys, when it comes to Jason Horne-Francis, who is yet to turn 19 years of age and is attracting headlines for the wrong reasons. They're football reasons and attitude football reasons, but it needs to all be put into the mix, doesn't it? When you're assessing these situations with these young people.
I want to ask you, Duck, and I'm sure you're in a similar situation, a young star coming through, weight of the world on your shoulders at a footy club. How do you assess the Jason Horne-Francis situation at the moment?
Yeah, it's a hard one because he's been put under all sorts of pressure. And we saw him live on Sunday, and he did look flat at times. He didn't have the energy that he's had, and then he obviously gets reported and gets 2 weeks. But as a 19-year-old, and going back to the example of back in our day compared to now with social media and the saturation, with the amount of people that cover this game, it's not even comparable.
Yeah.
So I just think it's really unfair that the pressure that's been put on him and all the marketing that's been done around him. I think that could have been handled differently from North Melbourne and said, okay, yes, he's a number one pick, but hang on, this kid's 18 years of age, so let's all pull up. I wouldn't have had him on any merchandise. I wouldn't have had him on anything. And I know that's easier said than done. I'm just saying as an 18-year-old to come in and be the saviour.
Yeah.
And now he's obviously, the pressure I think is probably getting to him, and the frustrations, and then the talk and everything else. A 2 week, to be honest, given his body language and the way I thought he was feeling from afar, from just outside the boundary looking at him, I reckon the 2 week break might do him a world of good.
That being a match review offers adjudication on his hit on Josh Kelly. So it could be the circuit breaker.
It is a fine line, though, isn't it, Damo, at the start of because you've got to put this kid, it's one of the positives and one of the shining lights for North Melbourne, and you've got to sort of promote that. But at the same time, you don't want to maybe put him in a situation like he's in right now, where he's probably feeling the expectation and the weight of the world on his shoulders.
We were talking a little bit about when he went back for Mother's Day and then got called and reprimanded for it, and then that became public, and there's issues saying, what's he going on? I go back to my experiences, and my second year they'd renamed the club junior membership from Buckley's Brigade to Tomo's Team 13, and the expectation that you're then okay with as a 19-year-old kid getting out the front, and everyone, all the kids, you go from group to group in and around that. I was lucky that the club really supported me in that and kept checking in, going, are you going okay with this? And at times I say, no, I don't really know how to handle this. I don't, in essence, really like it, because a lot of it is you grow up wanting to be the superstar. But when people start stopping you at dinners and interrupting meals, and kids are jumping out and everything's about you, you don't know how to handle it. There's no 101 guide for that. Yes, you know how to play football, but when it comes to that, there's no blanket rule. So unless the club are getting right around him, throwing their arms around him, asking him, does he want to go back, which that didn't happen. I think that's why that then goes to on-field performance. You look dejected. The thing that you want to do most, which is play footy, isn't going as well. Your team's not as good as they have been, and your junior career going up. All these things just stack up if you don't get the ones down the bottom right.
It's a very good point you make, because when you first start, that's what you want to play AFL footy and you want to be known. So that autograph, or you go to the family day and people say, "Oh, Joey, can I have your autograph?" It's like, "Oh, I've made it," or you're on a footy card.
Yeah.
"Oh, I've actually made it."
Yeah.
Then when you make it, you go, "Actually, can I go back to
Correct.
Can I go back the other way?"
Very good. But it's going to lead, I want to ask after the break, our Daisy Duck Dive, about Jason Horne-Francis. And on the flip side, if there is reports that he is petulant and he's a bit of, and he's thinking about leaving, I want to get your thoughts on what you would do if you're North Melbourne, and how desperate and how much you would do to keep him, or would you consider letting him go? That'll be up next after this on the Daisy Duck Dive. This is Triple M Footy's Midweek Rub. You both spoke very well about Jason Horne-Francis before the break, but I want to pose this question to you. On the flip side, if there is enough truth to these stories that he's maybe making noises about maybe wanting to leave, or he's not happy at the club, or he is a bit, petulant behind the scenes, how desperate would you be if you're North Melbourne to try and do everything you can to appease him, to make him, want to stay at the football club, because I think he will be one of the best players in the competition down the track? Or are you okay to potentially let him go home if that's what he wants, take whatever you can get for him and just move on?
It's a very good question. It's a hard question,
Yes.
because there's some.
I don't ask easy ones on the Daisy Duck Dive.
Because there's some hypotheticals
Yeah,
in
that's
there,
what that is.
and
It
we
is
don't
yes.
know exactly how he is thinking. But let's say all of those things that you said that he is. Then if someone really wants to leave that badly, I think you can't keep them against their will, because you're not going to get the best out of them even if they do stay. So I think you get the best possible deal you can. And you move on, and I know that's
As in this year,
I know
before
that's
the
harsh.
expiry of the 2-year contract.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, what's the point of going through a whole nother year if, once again, if he's feeling like Joey's saying, we don't know. I don't know that he's feeling like that, but if he is, then I would be trying to do the best possible deal and saying, well, okay, let's get 2 or 3 picks or whatever it may be, and let him go. Let him go and be happy, and it's a win-win.
Before you answer, Daisy, we have had a situation with this, didn't we? Tom Boyd went and did just 1 year at the
1 year
GWS
at the
Giants.
GWS.
And
But there was a vengeance element to the Bulldogs getting him out after they'd lost Ryan Griffin as their captain, and that was factored into that deal.
I mean, Nathan Buckley's
Buckley's
the biggest
Yeah,
one
yeah.
and the first one to probably do it.
to commit to 1 year
commit
only.
to 1 year only.
He made that very clear.
Won
to
the
the
by the
competition.
way, won the BNF at Brisbane.
Second.
Oh, well, runner
Made
up,
Magic
was it?
McLean. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
He probably should have or could have won it. But
Yep. So and then came. Oh, you're saying
couldn't give it to the first year that was going to
yeah,
leave.
Yeah.
Oh, well, that
Daisy
story
votes have
has
never
done
been
the
smudged
rounds.
before at
No,
club level.
no,
but
never.
it is. But yeah. So Bucks did it. He was open about it. Everyone knew. He gave his best while he was there.
Yeah, he did.
I just don't think. I just don't think you keep someone against their will.
Well, Brisbane did with Lachie Neale in the most recent off-season, Duck, didn't they?
You're talking about a seasoned.
Yeah, no, I know
professional.
what you're saying, but
A seasoned
there is
professional.
gain to keep him. I mean, I don't disagree with what you're saying for what it's worth, but the way I see it, they will make him serve the second year of the 2 years, which is mandated, and then maybe have the conversation. And to your point, well, what's the point? Why not do it now if the same conversation is going to be had next year?
And
but
if I'm
you hope
North-
time changes things.
If I'm North, I'm getting to the bottom of you're 14 games into your career. Why are you so displeased with this place? What is?
Well, hang on, that's not a puzzle.
No.
Do they want to know the answers?
No, but because what's saying, okay, yeah, sweet, it might be him, and after the same conversation's had in a year's time and he goes, but what, you're going to get compensation and another bloke comes in and nothing's been fixed, and a year down the track he goes, well, I've had enough, nothing's changed, I want to go. So unless you get to the bottom of what's the issue and where your grievances lie, you're not going to solve anything. You're just going to find yourself in the exact same pickle.
You can't have
year in, year
a
out.
whole club being bent over for one individual.
No, you can't.
teenager.
But if he's going to
by
be
a teenager, that's the other element to this.
But if he's going to cause the disruptions, you send your welfare person, go, right, what is it that you need? And then you weigh up, okay, is it worth for our point of view and your point of view? If you need us to do this, this and this, and to use your term, you are bending us over, well, maybe we do let you go and say, all right, greener pastures.
But he might not be the only one feeling it. Why is Taron Thomas not giving his all. Why is
Yeah.
Taron Thomas playing reserves because he's not living up to the standards? There's got to be more behind it. So I'm
Yeah.
agreeing with Daisy. You need to get to the bottom of why these youngsters
And
aren't.
that's
No, but that
that's
wasn't
your
the-
point that you
wasn't
made
the,
the-
that wasn't the
that
question.
was all
though.
to be factored in. You said
Oh,
there was a
right.
lot of things
No,
to
but
factor
that's
in.
the-
there's a lot to be fixed at
Yeah.
North Melbourne.
We've gone off a
we
little bit,
understand
but
that.
until North Melbourne admit that they're actually going a lot worse than what they are, which is hard to believe
Yeah.
considering where they are, nothing is going to get better and we're going to continue to have these problems.
Oh, well, I agree with that.
Next question. I want to get both your boys' takes on the bye situation. So Damo touched on it off the top. The 6 games. We've had the 1 game on Saturday, on the Sunday, a couple of flat ones. What would you do? Would you give everyone a week off? Do you like the floating sort of 3 weeks? How would you best go about it?
Ideal world, have a week off, not purely for the fact that I wouldn't mind a spell at some point, but a week off and have it so the mid-season trades and everything, that all comes to a finish on the Saturday, Sunday, one of those days. So there's a little bit of hype. If you want to have a show about it, Joey, and talk about it, you can do that. There's still something going on in the AFL world in that bye week, but give everyone a spell.
Industry holiday.
Yeah.
Of course, you would take
Work-life
that.
balance, Duck. You and I are going to Bali.
Noosa, imagine if it was an industry week off. Imagine Noosa Damo.
The airfares, you wouldn't be able to get one out of Melbourne.
One
They'd
week,
be
just 1
premium
week
prices.
off for everyone.
Yeah.
I don't mind that. And you know what I think we should do? 1 week off at AFL level, and we make it about the community football. And the whole highlight and the focus of that week is for everybody to get back to there's no AFL to watch on a Saturday. Go out to your community clubs.
Not one
tip
player
some money,
on AFL list would
or-
go back to his community
Yeah,
on
I
the
reckon
weekend.
they would. A lot of players do game on their bye and go and have a few
No, I'm
cans on
not
the
sure
hill
about
and
that.
watch their
They'd be
junior
up in
clubs.
Queensland, like
Or
you
a
said.
standalone game. Like, so your Queen's birthday game is the one game for that. So Melbourne, that have a bye the week after or whatever. Everyone else has that bye. Melbourne, Collingwood, Queen's birthday, the one game, draw every eye of the footballing world to that. Have your Saturday, Sunday off on the Queen's birthday, Monday, 1 game's played.
What about a state of origin game for that
No,
one weekend?
no.
But only every 4 years, not every year.
You won't get
No,
players in
no.
clubs.
What if you only
putting
get to
that.
play every 4 years? So
You
you
still
might
won't
only
get
get
players
one
in-
or 2 chances to represent Victoria.
I would have.
Did you love
Yeah.
representing Australia?
I
So
did,
would
and
you,
I
Joey,
missed the.
not everyone's born in Victoria. That's
Oh,
the problem with state of
Oh,
origin.
sorry, I meant the
But
other states as well.
Clubs won't be giving up their players this time of year, especially with how even we've spoken about the top 80s.
What about
on
I'll
mid-season
just
bye.
throw in maybe the Players Association should throw in some coin and
I was going to
and
say that, Daisy.
all the ex players now can go on a trip.
I don't know where this is going.
No, I don't know
I'm
where it
in.
is either,
I'm in.
Oh, anyway.
You be president, I'll be vice president of that
If you
association.
did it, if you did it really well, and the players got compensated to play in it, and you only play every
Yeah.
4 years, so it's not
I
like
love
players
the-
get sick of
I
it.
love the idea. I
Just
just
throwing it
could
out there.
not see the clubs putting their hands
Not
up
happening,
saying,
Joey.
have your
Okay.
best players.
Fair enough. That shot down pretty quick. Just want to ask about Port Adelaide, Duck. I know you were bullish on them, particularly once they went zip and 5. They had a little crack, but you look at their
They're done now.
ladder position now. They're 3 games out of the 8.
Done.
So-
I'm putting a line through them, Joey. I did this last year with West Coast. I followed it through till the end of the year.
But that wasn't my question. We knew that. We know they can't play
Cooked bread,
finals.
Duck. Cooked bread.
What would you do with?
Toast.
What do you think is the best course of action for Port Adelaide? Should they think about what we've seen with Collingwood and a new coach and how refreshing with a list that's got a bit of talent, a bit like Carlton and what they've been able to do? Should they consider maybe freshening up that list with a new coach, or do you think? No, Ken Hinkley's a very good coach. We all agree with that. He goes to the well again, fulfills his contract, and has another crack next season.
Not a new coach, but certainly a refresh. I think there's
of the list or the coaching group.
No. Well, the coaching group's had a little bit of a fresh. Vossi's left, so they've had a little bit of change within that group anyway. But I think Ken Hinkley's the right man for the job. I can't see him leaving Port Adelaide. What I can see is them now just putting players in maybe some spots that you didn't think or could try them in that you wouldn't normally do that, and find out a little bit more about your actual group and then refresh. So you're certainly not aiming at playing finals footy now, or even trying to. I wouldn't have thought.
No, do you think the hierarchy look at Collingwood and what's happened with their list and getting a new coach in? Not saying that Port Adelaide are playing as badly as Collingwood, but just whether the same voice over a long period of time and the impact that a new coach has had to pretty much the same list. Let's be honest, Collingwood haven't had too many changes list-wise. Is it something to think about?
I think they'd definitely be asking the questions behind closed doors. Certainly, whether or not, though, the players, when you're zipping 5, usually the players and the club start to fracture a little bit in, what's going on? There's somebody.
They all love Ken. don't
They were all
Yeah.
there right in firmly behind Kenny Hinkley. So for that point and that point alone, he hasn't lost the group. Do they need to tweak some things to Duck's point and maybe try something that can change a game plan going in and give them a little bit of an elevated head start? Think back to Melbourne when they had their poor year after making the prelim. Their last 4 or 5 rounds really set them up. They came out and said that for a tilt at it. So use this back end of the year, and they're not going to make finals. So try some different things to tinker with your game plan so you're ahead of the game next year.
Joey, I'll just jump in here in this place. Sometimes you've got to be careful what you wish for with a fresh start, I think, because look what North Melbourne did with Brad Scott in 2019. They had him on a 3-year contract extension. They got rid of him after 18 months, thinking that they were going to get the effect that Collingwood and Carlton have got. Now, I know it does happen, but just be careful. If you've got an established coach, when Ken, I think, irrefutably is that, just be careful. I think sometimes what you want to do around that situation when the form line isn't as good as you want it to be.
Yeah, it's a very good point.
Grass is not always greener.
No, exactly right. Very good point.
And sometimes if it is, there's more manure.
I was just playing devil's advocate, just throwing out
That was a good question, Joe.
And the last one then, we'll just want to quickly get, and Damo, you can join in here. We spoke about it a few weeks ago, but with all these sides that are contending for a premiership at the moment, who is your coach of the year again right now? Because Daisy, you were big on Craig McRae a few weeks ago. So I presume you're going to stick.
Yeah, well, I think
Craig?
arguably, and we've sort of spoken a fair bit about him and them being Collingwood, they've been fantastic. They lost to Geelong by a kick, Brisbane by a kick, and lost to West Coast somehow. They could well and truly be a lot higher than where they are. Yes, obviously some of the games they have won have gone their way, and that's the game essentially. But their form line from where they were 17th and where the club was, it has been a monumental turnaround. It was a yard sale. They got rid of Treloar, got rid of everyone, couldn't fire a shot. Then all of a sudden he comes in, and the way they're playing with freedom, with confidence, it's brilliant to go and watch. They're a bums on seats sort of side because they're exciting.
So was the conditioning last year, Damo, with Collingwood, when the back end of the year they just started playing all the kids and they were getting Trey Rusco and they were giving everyone games?
Yep.
Is that now they've looked back? So actually, they had a talented list there. They just weren't able to get the best out of it with Nathan Buckley.
And look, also too, the unknown is, and you can't measure this, but the attitude change that has come into the place, and the no ceiling attitude on a training session, let alone a result of a 23 rounds season of footy. So 22 matches, 23 rounds. But yeah, I think that's a key part of it. And Daisy's been big on the McRae story all year, hasn't he? As being the coach of the year, and it's hard to argue. I'd put Voss in it for what it's worth, Doug, before you get to it.
No, I honestly think you could throw a blanket over Longmuir, Voss, and I think you can add Stewie Dew to that list as well.
Yeah,
I think
For a second.
I think there's been some unbelievable coaching. And they get a bad run. They lose a couple, and the media gets into them. So I think all of those guys should take a bow. I think they've been, and Brett Ratton under all sorts of pressure.
Good one.
Everyone's saying he's going to be first sacked if they get off to a bad start.
Sam Mitchell, he could make a case for. Everyone was talking about old Clarko, and they
Stewie
haven't
Dew
won as many
deserves more
games.
of a pump up too, by the
Stewie
way,
Dew,
because we've come for him, we being the media, and not me exclusively, and I've tried to very much be on his side and support him. But he has been come for. Clarkson's had his job 5 times.
Yeah.
He's had the worst spot to be in, and for him to turn them around has been fantastic.
Who have you got, Joey?
And I tell you what, you could argue that Chris Scott is coaching as well as he has in 10
Yeah.
years to change his whole philosophy, his whole game plan, and just watch the Cats back half of the season
and lose some key assistants as well.
Yeah,
he lost a lot of key
changed
assistants.
up Corey Enright, went Scarlett.
Yeah,
changed it up, and now
Really
with
nice.
Dangerfield and Jack Henry and a few players coming back, watch out for the Cats the back half of the season.
Who have you got in after that? After all,
I think Justin Longmuir, to be honest. No one saw Fremantle being probably right now the equal premiership favourites, so that's been an awesome effort. Hey, great Daisy Duck Dive. Up next, we're going to take a look at all the round 14 action because there's a couple of big games starting with Thursday night, Richmond Carlton. This is Triple M Footy's Midweek Rub. Now let's get into the round 14 action, Daisy, because I want your thoughts on this Thursday night game. Richmond Carlton. What an absolute blockbuster this will be.
How good. Both teams in really good form. Richmond turning it around. They've been fantastic. MCG going to be packed again. We spoke about the Collingwood game the other week, Carlton game, and how we wanted a big crowd to come, and hopefully the game didn't disappoint. It didn't. I don't think this game will disappoint. The weather's meant to be a bit iffy, so it'll be hard. It'll be tough. I think that plays into both teams' strengths. We know how good Richmond are in and around the footy, their ability to knock it on. I think the Blues have evolved in that area. Going to be a cracker. I'm going to tip the Blues purely because they're higher on the ladder.
I think the Tiger fans will come out in force. A little bit of criticism, 21,000 to last Thursday night against Port Adelaide. Both teams vying for a finals position. Really, really disappointing. Up against one of their fiercest rivals for the last 100+ years. It's going to be a massive crowd, but I'm going with the Blues.
The Blues as well. Damo, the crowd, will that be a factor one way or the other? Like if they come out and there's 70,000, we put to bed this whole argument that Thursday night doesn't work. But if it's only sort of 50,000 and below, does the conversation again
I
talk
think
about Thursday
anything below
night
55 is
disappointed.
We'll keep the conversation alive to that
Right.
point, I feel. Yeah, but again, how cold is it right now? And people are factoring that in. But on the tip itself, I'm really confident on the Blues.
Put a MND beanie on and a jacket.
You could do that, Jack.
Or you could sit by the fire and have a
Joey,
bottle of red and watch it on TV too. Or listen to Triple M, even better way to do it. I'm going Richmond. I think it's very hard to split. I think right now defensively, Richmond are defending better. So that's probably the only reason. I think without the footy.
They're going to need to, Joey, against the two big boys.
Absolutely.
And the three small guys.
They'll do it by committee. Be interesting to see what they do at the back line. Bolter, does he play? You think Bolter should be a defender? Just quickly? Or continue to be a swingman?
I think this week against Carlton, I'd be playing him back because of those big guys. I'd be playing him on one of those keys.
There's some issues with
he's so
Joey.
athletic.
You reckon just
at the high end at this stage of his career.
And you can't have Rewalt. If Lynch is coming back, you can't have Rewalt, Lynch and Bolter in the same forward.
And they've still got Soldo and Nankervis spending time down there.
He gets in the way a lot, Bolter, when he plays forward. And not from any point, just from trying, but knowing where other people are leading. Because he is more of a defender, he doesn't know who spaces whom and where he needs to go and at what time.
Spuds game Friday night. We all presume St Kilda should beat Essendon. No one thinks Essendon can turn the corner just yet.
How many corners?
How many times do you?
Yeah. Well, my feel is eventually they're going to win one. That's the only thing. So I'm just hoping it's not this Friday night.
Big moment for the Spuds game too. Spuds game, time to talk, and all the messaging and the destigmatising around the mental health space and all the learnings and all the Danny Frawley Centre development down there, and just people embrace that side of it. There's going to be a big celebration pre-match and post.
Good point. We'll quickly touch on his Men's Health Week this week. I know you're involved with Mosh Duck, who do a lot in that space. Daisy, you're very big in this space, so it is a great time to just reach out and just speak to a mate and
a text, a call, make a conversation, start a conversation.
St Kilda Mosh this year.
Yes, that's right.
So they're involved with them, so all
very good.
Men's Health made easy.
I want to ask about the GWS Giants v the Western Bulldogs game, because the Giants are now playing some really good footy. I know they've beaten North Melbourne and West Coast in two of their wins, but can they beat the Western Bulldogs? The
Absolutely, they can. Yeah. But I mean, you're right to raise that three of the matches they've played under Mark McVeigh. Two of those teams are witches' hats. So
don't be seduced. Don't be seduced. Everyone's saying the Orange Tsunami's back and everything else. And don't get me wrong, I love the way they're playing. I love the move of Himmelberg back to defence. He's playing really well. But exactly to Damo's point, they've played no one.
Cornelio's had plenty of touches, but Damo, if you were playing against North Melbourne or West Coast, how many touches do you reckon you could get? If you
I'd get one. I'd get one, which wouldn't be a guarantee against the other team.
Would it be a kick-in?
It could be. It could be, Dace. Yeah,
but
down and have a good team wouldn't allow me to even do that.
Smart. I think Bulldogs win that one. GWS.
I'm going to go the Bulldogs. I nearly went Giants. I'll go the Bulldogs. Bulldogs.
And Gold Coast, Adelaide? Yeah, Gold Coast.
Gold Coast might go on a little run here. You spoke about Stewie. Their form line's pretty good. They've got a pretty good run. It's going to be so hard to make the 8, but they'll still be knocking on the door.
And I know we haven't touched on it, but Port Adelaide Sydney is interesting because we expect Sydney to win given their form. Port Adelaide, we're going to find out whether, and it's a home game for them. We're going to find out whether they, really want to finish this year off or do what we said, and that is start to plan for next year, starting this weekend.
And the other big game you haven't touched on, North v the Bye. Duck, your expectations in that one?
I tell you what, you'd be upset if you got beaten by the Bye, wouldn't you?
Daisy.
Very big way to finish. Very naughty.
Well, I'll tell you how
You're a naughty boy, Dale.
I'll tell you how you can be beaten. I'll tell you how you can be beaten by the Bye.
Yeah.
Is go away and get ahead of yourself and not come back prepared for the week after. That's how the Bye can get you.
Yeah, the Bye's got a lot of us in the past too. Hey, another great show, Duck. You're obviously not going anywhere. You just got the tracksuit on today.
You know what? I'm going to
snuggle up,
rug up in front of the fire.
Beautiful. Right. Thank you, Damo, Daisy. As always, this has been Triple M Footy's Midweek Rub, exclusive on the Listener app. And don't forget, you can listen to every game across round 14, starting with Thursday night on Listener app and Triple M. It's JB, BT, Daisy ahead of the Richmond v Carlton game. Thanks for listening. We'll do it all again next week.